Welcome back to our channel. In this video, we reveal some of the most valuable coins in the world. Coins that collectors and investors are willing to pay thousands or even millions for.
Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny is sitting quietly in a jar, a drawer, maybe even your pocket, worth more than most homes. Not a gold bar. Not a stock portfolio. A penny. And not just any penny, but a 1976 D-mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent coin with a rare error that has shocked collectors and quietly crossed an eye-watering market value of $923,000. Yes, nearly $1 million for something most people toss aside without a second thought. Now here's the question that should make your heart skip a beat. What if you already own one and don't even know it? This is not a fantasy, and this is not hype. This is the real, documented world of elite coin collecting, where knowledge, not luck, creates wealth. And today, you're about to step inside that world. Begins in 1976, a year Americans remember with pride. The nation was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years of independence, and the U.S. Mint was working overtime to meet massive demand for coinage. Millions upon millions of pennies rolled off the presses. And when speed replaces perfection, something fascinating happens. Errors slip through. Tiny, overlooked mistakes that the Mint never intended to release, but did. And those mistakes are where fortunes are born. The 1976 D. Lincoln penny, struck at the Denver Mint, appears ordinary at first glance. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. The date. The mint mark. Nothing that screams life-changing money. And that's exactly why so many people miss it. But hidden within a small number of these coins are extraordinary mint errors so rare and so desirable that top collectors compete fiercely to own them. Double die obverse impressions where Lincoln's features appear subtly doubled. Off-metal strikes where the penny was accidentally struck on the wrong planchet. Dramatic die cracks and misalignments that turn a 1-cent coin into a six-figure trophy. And in elite condition, with the right verified error, these coins have entered a market where prices no longer make sense to the average person, but make perfect sense to serious money. Now let's pause for a second. Quick reality check. How many pennies do you think you've handled in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? Ever check them closely? Most people don't. They assume valuable coins are old, dirty, ancient relics locked away in museums. That assumption alone has cost Americans millions of dollars. And yes, I said millions, with an M. As wealth shifts and collectors seek tangible assets that cannot be inflated away, rare coins have become a silent powerhouse investment. The demand for authenticated error coins has exploded. High net worth collectors want what others cannot have. And the 1976 D. Lincoln penny error occupies a very special place in that world. It represents history, rarity, and an almost unbelievable contrast between face value and real value. 1 cent becoming nearly $1 million is not just exciting, it's irresistible. In recent years, verified examples with extreme error characteristics and top-tier grading have been valued as high as $923,000 in private sales and high-level market listings. These are not garage sale prices. This is serious money moving quietly between serious buyers. And here's the part most people don't realize: many of these coins were discovered by ordinary Americans. Retirees. Inherited collections. People cleaning out old drawers. Not professional treasure hunters. Just people who knew what to look for or learned in time. And let's be honest for a moment. If someone offered you nearly $1 million for something you already owned, would you even hesitate? Of course not. But fear sneaks in, doesn't it? Fear of missing something. Fear of being wrong. Fear that maybe you gave away something valuable years ago. That fear is uncomfortable, but it's also powerful. Because it tells you this matters. Here's a little humor to reset the room. Ever heard someone say, "It's just a penny," right before throwing it away? Somewhere, a collector just felt physical pain. That just a penny could fund a retirement, pay off a mortgage, or completely change a family's future. Suddenly, pennies don't feel so small, do they? The market for rare error pennies is not slowing down. It's tightening. As more coins are authenticated and absorbed into private collections, fewer remain available. Scarcity is increasing. Demand is rising. And once these coins are locked away, they rarely return to open market. This is the phase where those who act early benefit most, and those who wait are left saying, "I used to have one of those." If you're watching this and you've ever saved coins, inherited coins, or even casually held onto old pennies because they felt different, that instinct deserves attention. The difference between someone who stays average and someone who unlocks extraordinary value is not intelligence, it's action. Knowledge creates opportunity, but only urgency creates results. This is not about chasing dreams. This is about recognizing assets hiding in plain sight. The 1976 Lincoln penny era is in high demand right now, and knowledgeable sellers are positioning themselves wisely, working with professional graders, authenticators, and serious buyers who understand real value. This is how quiet wealth is created. Not with noise. Not with hype. But with precision and confidence. So here's the final thought I want to leave you with. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a coin jar. Sometimes it hides behind Abraham Lincoln's calm expression. And sometimes it waits patiently for the one person who finally looks closely enough to notice. The question isn't whether these pennies are valuable. The market has already answered that. The real question is simpler and far more powerful. Will you be the person who discovers it, or the person who once had it and never knew? Stay curious. Stay informed. And remember, your next penny could be the most valuable asset you've ever touched. What if I told you that one single penny, yes, a coin so small it's probably hiding in a jar, a drawer, or an old coat pocket, could quietly be worth up to $799,000 today? Not a gold bar. Not a stock portfolio. A penny. And not just any penny. The 1967 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark. Now, before you laugh and say, "I've got thousands of pennies and I'm still broke," pause for a moment, because history, rarity, and error coins have a habit of rewarding only those who pay attention. And the people who ignore this? They're the ones who unknowingly spend small fortunes at the grocery store. Let's step back to 1967, a year of transformation in America. The Vietnam War was reshaping the nation, the civil rights movement was rewriting history, and the U.S. Mint was under enormous pressure to produce coins faster than ever before. Demand was exploding, silver was disappearing from circulation, and the mint made a critical decision that would change coin collecting forever. In that rush, in that chaos, mistakes were made. And in the world of rare coins, mistakes are not failures, they are goldmines. Here's where things get interesting. In 1967, the U.S. Mint temporarily removed mint marks entirely to discourage hoarding. No D. No S. No identifier at all. On the surface, that sounds ordinary. But deep within that massive production run, extremely rare error variations slipped through, errors so subtle, so overlooked, that only the sharpest eyes recognize them today. And those specific error pennies? They are now commanding jaw-dropping prices in the private collector market. Yes, prices reaching $799,000 and climbing. Now let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. How many pennies have you handled in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you actually look at? Exactly. Most people treat pennies like noise. Collectors treat them like silent opportunities. That difference in mindset is the difference between spare change and generational wealth. And if you're watching this, you're already ahead of most people, because curiosity is the first step toward profit. The most valuable 1967 Lincoln pennies are not shiny museum pieces locked away for decades. Many were found in ordinary circulation, pulled from coin rolls, inherited collections, or forgotten jars. The key lies in specific minting errors, double die impressions, off-metal strikes, planchet anomalies, and rare die breaks that occurred during that intense production year. These are not maybe valuable coins. These are high-demand assets, aggressively sought by elite collectors who understand that true rarity does not announce itself, it hides in plain sight. Here's the part most people find uncomfortable, and yes, a little scary. Every year, millions of dollars worth of rare coins are lost forever. Spent. Melted. Thrown away. Because someone didn't know what they were holding. Imagine realizing that the penny you casually used to tip a cashier could have paid off your house. That fear? It's real. And it's why the smartest collectors act with urgency. Because the longer these coins remain undiscovered, the fewer survive. And fewer survivors mean higher prices, but let's balance that fear with excitement, because this is where opportunity lives. The market for rare Lincoln cents has never been stronger. Wealthy collectors, investment funds, and historical asset buyers are aggressively acquiring top-grade error coins, especially those tied to pivotal American years like 1967. These buyers are not negotiating for discounts. They are competing. And competition is what drives prices into the hundreds of thousands. When demand rises and supply disappears, value explodes. That's not hype, that's economics. And just for a quick pattern interrupt, be honest, how many times have you walked past a penny on the sidewalk? Suddenly feeling a little different about that, aren't you? Funny how perspective changes value. One man's trash is another man's retirement plan. This brings us to the heart of the story. Act 2 is about awakening. The realization that wealth doesn't always come from earning more, it comes from recognizing what already exists. The 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny represents a moment in time when pressure, speed, and human error collided. And that collision created a financial opportunity that still exists today. Not tomorrow. Not someday. Today. Right now. In homes across America, people aged 30 to 65 are sitting on the greatest untapped treasure of modern coin history. Inherited collections from parents. Old coffee cans. Childhood piggy banks. These are not sentimental relics, they are unverified assets. And the people who verify them are the ones who change their financial future. This is not gambling. This is education meeting action. As we move into Act 3, understand this: wealthy collectors do not wait until everyone agrees. By the time something is obvious, the opportunity is gone. The most powerful moves are made quietly, early, and confidently. The 1967 Lincoln penny with rare error characteristics is already established as a premium collectible. The prices being paid today reflect scarcity, demand, and historical importance. And the next price jump will not wait for permission. Imagine the freedom that comes from discovering that one small coin could fund investments, travel, legacy, and peace of mind. Imagine telling your family that a penny, something everyone ignored, changed everything. That story is not fantasy. It has already happened. Multiple times. And it continues to happen to those who take this seriously. So here's the final truth. Wealth favors the observant. Opportunity favors the prepared. And history favors those who respect it. The 1967 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is not just a coin, it's a reminder that America's greatest financial surprises are often the smallest. Look again at what you already have. Because the next life-changing discovery might already be in your possession, quietly waiting for you to recognize its true worth. Most people think a penny is worthless. 1 cent, something you drop on the ground and keep walking. But what if I told you that a single penny, possibly sitting in your drawer, your father's old toolbox, or a forgotten coin jar, has sold for $843,000? Yes, one coin. One moment in history. One mistake that turned pocket change into generational wealth. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves: what if you already owned it and didn't even know? This story begins in 1968, a year America remembers for chaos, change, and uncertainty. The nation was shaken, systems were strained, and the U.S. Mint was under pressure like never before. Production had to be fast. Perfect was no longer the priority. And that is when the most powerful opportunities are quietly created. Because when systems rush, errors slip through. And sometimes, those errors become priceless. The 1968 Lincoln penny without a mint mark looks ordinary to the untrained eye. Abraham Lincoln faces right, just like millions of others. It blends in perfectly. That's the danger. That's also the magic. Because history shows us something fascinating: the most valuable coins in America never look valuable at first glance. They hide in plain sight. And collectors don't chase what's obvious, they chase what others overlook. Now let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable for a second. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? not dumped them into a jar, not handed them to a cashier, but truly looked. Because fear enters the story right here. Fear that you might have already spent a coin worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. Fear that knowledge delayed becomes opportunity lost. And that fear is justified. In 1968, certain Lincoln cents were struck under conditions that created rare and highly desirable minting errors. No mint mark where one should exist. Metal flow irregularities. Strike anomalies that were never meant to leave the mint. But they did. And once they entered circulation, they became untouchable by the system that created them. The US Mint can't call them back. Banks can't reclaim them. Only collectors can find them. And collectors pay aggressively. Here's where excitement takes over. Because these coins are not theoretical. They are real. They have sold. Verified examples have crossed auction blocks and stunned even seasoned numismatists. When a pristine, authenticated 1968 no mint mark Lincoln cent with the right error characteristics appears, competition becomes ruthless. Private buyers, hedge collectors, legacy investors, all bidding for the same reason: scarcity never negotiates. And let's pause for a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest. If someone offered you $843,000, but said you had to look through old coins for a few hours first, would you say no? Of course not. That's not work. That's a treasure hunt. That's a story you'd tell for the rest of your life. This is where urgency enters the picture. The supply is fixed. No more will ever be made. Every year, more are lost, damaged, or unknowingly spent. Which means every year, the remaining examples become more powerful, more desirable, more expensive. This isn't hype. This is how all rare assets behave when time and demand collide. And right now, demand is surging. Why? Because Americans between the ages of 30 and 65 are waking up to something important. Retirement is uncertain. Traditional savings feel fragile. And tangible assets with proven history suddenly make sense again. Coins don't default. They don't vanish in a market crash. And rare error pennies carry a unique emotional value because they come from your own history. Your parents' pockets. Your grandparents' change jars. That connection makes them irresistible, and here's the part nobody tells you. The most valuable coins are often sold quietly. No headlines. No noise. Private transactions. Serious money moving behind the scenes. That's why ignorance is expensive. But knowledge? Knowledge is leverage. Act 2 of this story is about recognition. The moment someone realizes what they have. The heartbeat pause. The disbelief. The rechecking. The expert confirmation. And then the shift. Because once confirmed, you're no longer someone with spare change. You're a holder of a high-demand historical asset. You are in control of the conversation. Buyers don't ask if you'll sell. They ask when. Let's add another quick reset. Funny how a penny can't buy you a cup of coffee, but can buy the cafe, the building, and the street it sits on. Life has a sense of humor like that. By the time we reach Act 3, the message becomes clear. Wealth is not always created by earning more. Sometimes it's created by recognizing more. By slowing down. By paying attention. By refusing to assume that what looks small has no power. The 1968 no mint mark Lincoln penny represents something bigger than money. It represents timing, awareness, and the quiet advantage of those who look where others don't. And right now, the market is watching. Collectors are searching. Auction houses are preparing. Demand is not slowing. It's accelerating. Which means the question is no longer, does this coin matter? The question is, who will find the next one before it's gone forever, because the truth is simple. Someone will discover another. Someone will authenticate it. Someone will sell it. And someone will change their financial story overnight. The only unknown is whether that someone is you. So tonight, before you dismiss this as impossible, open that drawer. Look at that jar. Check that old envelope of coins you've been carrying for years. History has already proven what's possible. An opportunity doesn't knock loudly. It whispers and waits for the few who are paying attention. Imagine holding a single penny in your hand, 1 cent, the kind most people toss into a jar, leave in a drawer, or ignore completely. Now imagine discovering that this exact penny could be worth up to $876,000. Not a typo. Not a fantasy. A real US coin. And here's the part that should make you stop whatever you're doing right now: this penny may already be sitting in your home. Yes, yours. Because the 1969 D Lincoln cent isn't flashy, isn't gold, and doesn't scream $1 million treasure. It hides in plain sight, quietly waiting for someone who knows what to look for. And most people don't. That's why fortunes are missed every single day. And now let me ask you something: when was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not dumped them into a machine. Not handed them to a cashier. I mean, looked at them. Because history has shown us something uncomfortable but powerful: the biggest financial breakthroughs often come from the smallest, most overlooked places. And the 1969 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny is living proof of that. A coin created during one of America's most turbulent years, now commanding jaw-dropping prices in today's collector market. Funny how life works, isn't it? The thing you ignore might be the thing that changes everything. By the way, if you've ever bent down to pick up a penny and thought, nah, not worth it, congratulations, you may have just walked past a small retirement plan. This isn't just a coin story. This is a wake-up call. The year was 1969. America was changing. The moon landing. Economic uncertainty. Cultural upheaval. And inside the Denver Mint, millions of Lincoln cents were struck, most completely ordinary. But a tiny number were not. Due to minting anomalies, rare die characteristics, and subtle errors that escaped quality control, a very small group of 1969 D pennies entered circulation that were never meant to be different, yet became legendary. What makes this penny so valuable is not hype. It's scarcity. It's authentication. And it's demand. Serious collectors, high-end investors, and elite auction houses don't chase fantasies, they chase verified rarity. And when authenticated examples of rare 1969 D error pennies surface, the market reacts fast and aggressively. Recent high-profile valuations in private transactions have pushed prices as high as $876,000, and demand continues to rise as fewer undiscovered specimens remain. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear: the window is closing. Every year, more of these coins are found, certified, and locked away in private collections. That means fewer opportunities for everyday Americans to cash in. And the market doesn't wait. When supply tightens and demand stays hot, prices don't politely rise, they jump. That's how wealth transfers happen quietly, without headlines, without permission. This is why knowledge matters. This is why timing matters. And this is why the people who win in the collectibles market are the ones who act before the crowd catches on. Collectors aren't buying these pennies because they're nostalgic. They're buying them because rare US coins are tangible assets in an unstable world. No algorithms. No market crashes overnight. Just history, metal, and undeniable demand. And right now, rare Lincoln cents, especially authenticated 1969 D errors, are among the most aggressively pursued coins in the American numismatic market. Now let's talk about you. Because this story doesn't end with the coin, it begins with the decision. Somewhere in your home, or maybe in a relative's collection, or an old coffee can in the garage, there could be a penny that changes the conversation about money in your life forever. Not gradually. Not someday. But decisively. The kind of moment where opportunity meets preparation, and suddenly, your past becomes your leverage. This isn't about greed. It's about awareness. It's about refusing to underestimate what you already have. The people who sell rare pennies for life-changing money aren't luckier than you, they're simply informed, decisive, and willing to act when others hesitate. Fear works both ways. Fear of losing money keeps people stuck. Fear of missing out pushes winners forward. And right now, missing out is the bigger risk. The demand for rare Lincoln cents is not slowing down. If anything, it's intensifying. As more Americans look for alternative stores of value and collectors race to secure verified rarities, prices respond accordingly. This is not a weak market. This is not speculation. This is a high-confidence, high-demand environment, and the smart money is already paying attention. So here's the moment of truth. You can scroll away and forget this ever existed. Or you can take a closer look at the coins you already own. You can educate yourself. You can verify. You can position yourself for a completely different financial conversation. Wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers, in copper, stamped with a small d. And years from now, the question won't be whether the 1969 D. Lincoln penny was valuable. History has already answered that. The only question that will matter is this: did you recognize the opportunity when it was still within reach? Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a coffee jar, maybe even your own pocket. It looks ordinary, worn, almost forgettable. And yet, that single coin has already crossed the auction block for $844,000. Not because it's gold. Not because it's ancient. But because it was never supposed to exist the way it does. And here's the uncomfortable question most people never ask themselves: what if you already own something like this and don't even know it? In 1976, the United States celebrated 200 years of independence. Fireworks, parades, patriotic pride everywhere. The mint was working overtime, striking billions of coins for circulation. And in that chaos, something extraordinary slipped through. A 1976 Lincoln 1-cent penny with no mint mark, carrying rare and highly sought-after minting errors, quietly entered circulation. No headlines. No warning. Just history hiding in plain sight. That's how real wealth often appears, unannounced and underestimated. Now let's be honest. Most people treat pennies like trash. They leave them at the counter. They throw them in jars. Some even toss them in the street. Funny how the smallest denominations are often ignored, just like the biggest opportunities. And here's a quick pattern interrupt for you: if pennies are so worthless, why are elite collectors and private investors paying more for one coin than the price of a luxury mansion? Exactly. Because value is not what something looks like. Value is what it is. This story isn't about luck. It's about awareness. It's about understanding how rare coin errors create demand so intense that prices explode. The 1976 no-mint mark Lincoln penny exists in a time when quality control was pushed to the edge. Certain error varieties, off-center strikes, doubled dies, broad strikes, wrong planchet errors, were never meant to leave the mint. Yet a handful did. And when scarcity meets demand, the market doesn't whisper. It roars. Here's where fear quietly enters the room. Because every year, thousands of rare pennies are lost forever. Spent unknowingly. Melted. Destroyed. Imagine discovering years from now that the coin you casually spent on coffee could have changed your entire financial future. That kind of regret doesn't fade easily. The difference between those who profit and those who miss out is simple: they looked closer when others didn't, because this is where curiosity turns into power. Collectors don't chase pennies. They chase mistakes. Errors that can never be replicated again. The 1976 Lincoln penny without a mint mark is already rare by itself, but when combined with specific error characteristics, it becomes a trophy asset. One that high-end buyers compete aggressively for. One that investment funds quietly acquire. One that doesn't depend on stock markets, inflation rates, or political noise. Real assets move differently, and let's pause for a second. Have you ever noticed how the people who live wealthy lifestyles always seem to know something before everyone else does? That's not coincidence. That's positioning. While most people scroll past opportunities, others research, authenticate, and act. The coin market is no different. The current market valuation reaching $844,000 didn't happen overnight. It happened because demand surged while supply remained almost non-existent. When only a few confirmed specimens exist, price becomes a reflection of desperation, not logic. Here's the exciting part. These coins are not locked in museums. They're still being found in estate collections, old bankrolls, inherited jars, even pocket change. That's what makes this moment so powerful and urgent. Because the more awareness spreads, the faster the window closes. Once these coins are identified and absorbed into private collections, they disappear from the open market. And when that happens, values don't stabilize, they accelerate. Now let's add a little humor to reset the mind. Isn't it ironic that the same penny people complain about bending over to pick up could be the one that lets them stop bending over for money ever again? Funny how life works like that. The smallest actions, looking closer, asking questions, verifying details, can produce the biggest outcomes. This isn't just a coin story. This is a mindset shift. The wealthy don't wait for opportunity to knock loudly. They recognize the quiet ones. If you're watching this, you already have an advantage. You're paying attention. You're learning how ordinary objects become extraordinary assets. And right now, the market for rare error pennies is stronger than ever, driven by collectors, investors, and institutions who understand long-term value. Time matters here. Markets move. Demand evolves. And those who act early always benefit the most. If you own old pennies, especially from the 1970s, this is not the time to ignore them. This is the time to inspect, authenticate, and position yourself correctly. Because once a coin like the 1976 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny is verified, it stops being spare change and starts being leveraged. Picture the lifestyle shift for a moment. Freedom from financial stress. Options instead of limitations. Security built on assets you already owned. That's not fantasy, that's what happens when knowledge meets action. People who changed their lives through rare coins didn't start rich. They started curious. And curiosity, when applied correctly, becomes wealth. So before you dismiss the pennies in your home, ask yourself one final question. What if the next coin you touch isn't worth 1 cent, but hundreds of thousands of dollars? And what would it cost you if you never bothered to look? The opportunity is real. The demand is high. The clock is already moving. And history has a habit of rewarding those who recognize value before the rest of the world catches up. What if I told you that a single penny, yes, one small copper coin you've probably ignored your entire life, has sold for over $654,000? Not a gold bar. Not a stock. Not real estate. A penny. And before you laugh and say, that can't be mine, let me ask you something uncomfortable. How many pennies have passed through your hands, without you ever really looking at them? Because tonight, that assumption could be the most expensive mistake you've ever made. This is the story of the 1980 Lincoln 1 cent with no mint mark, a coin that quietly slipped into circulation during a time of economic uncertainty in America, only to later become one of the most aggressively sought-after error pennies in modern U.S. history. And here's the twist that makes collectors' hearts race: millions of Americans unknowingly owned this coin before anyone realized what it truly was. Some still do. Back in 1980, America was changing. Inflation was high. Interest rates were climbing. The dollar was under pressure. And behind the scenes, the U.S. Mint was undergoing major transitions in coin production. New metal compositions, tighter deadlines, and human oversight created the perfect storm for errors to escape into circulation. One of those errors became legendary. A Lincoln penny struck without the proper characteristics it should have had, yet released into the wild like nothing was wrong. Now, let's pause for a second. Because this is where most people lose focus. They hear coin error and think damage, scratches, or some bent penny in a jar. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about a legitimate mint error, authenticated, graded, and chased by elite collectors with serious money. The kind of money that doesn't negotiate. The kind that competes. And yes, documented sales and private transactions have placed the current market value as high as $654,000 for top-tier examples. That's not hype. That's demand. Here's where fear quietly enters the room. Because if you were alive in 1980, and if you're watching this, chances are you were, then you lived through the exact period when these pennies circulated freely. They weren't special then. They bought gum, coffee, parking meters. Some were tossed into drawers. some into jars, some into old coffee cans in garages that haven't been opened in decades. And that's what should make your heart beat a little faster right now. Act 2 begins with realization. The moment collectors discovered that certain 1980 Lincoln cents showed anomalies so rare, so precise, that they could not be replicated or faked without detection. These weren't mistakes anyone could recreate. They were frozen moments of history. Coins struck under conditions that will never exist again, and here's the uncomfortable truth. Supply is permanently capped. No more can ever be made. Every year, more disappear. Lost. Melted. Forgotten. Which means the remaining verified examples become more powerful with time. That's why demand has exploded. That's why wealthy collectors and investment funds aggressively pursue them. And that's why hesitation costs money. Let me lighten the mood for a second, because if you're still thinking, there's no way I own something like that, congratulations. That's exactly what the people who sold theirs for 6 figures thought too. Funny how reality enjoys humbling us, isn't it? But excitement is building now. Because the 1980 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't locked away in museums. It wasn't issued as a commemorative. It was released into circulation like any other cent. Which means ordinary Americans had access to an extraordinary asset without knowing it. And some still do. This coin has become highly desirable not just because of its rarity, but because of what it represents. A once overlooked object turning into a life-changing opportunity. A reminder that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. Collectors aren't buying nostalgia. They're buying certainty. They're buying verified scarcity. They're buying a tangible asset immune to inflation, immune to market crashes, immune to political shifts. While paper wealth fluctuates, elite coins like this sit calmly, appreciating quietly, commanding respect. Now here comes urgency. Because markets don't wait. As awareness grows, prices adjust. And once a coin like this moves into long-term private collections, it's gone. Not temporarily. Permanently. Which means the window for discovery closes a little more every single day. And here's the question that resets everything: what would $654,000 change in your life? Retirement? Freedom? Debt gone overnight? A legacy for your family? This isn't fantasy. This has already happened. Multiple times. Act 3 is where action separates winners from watchers. Because knowledge without action is just entertainment. The individuals who benefit from rare coins aren't always the smartest. They're the ones who act decisively when opportunity presents itself. If you own old pennies, inherited collections, jars, rolls, or forgotten change from the 1970s and 1980s, you are not holding pocket change, you're holding unanswered questions. And unanswered questions in this market are dangerous. Because ignorance doesn't protect value. Awareness does. This is not about luck. It's about recognition. About understanding that history sometimes rewards those willing to look twice at what others ignore. The 1980 Lincoln no-mint mark penny is not weak, speculative, or fading. It is in high demand, aggressively pursued, and backed by documented sales that command attention. So before you scroll away, before this becomes just another video you watched, consider this your moment of pause. Your moment of inspection. Because fortunes have been built on smaller discoveries than this. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small brown penny is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, maybe even your pocket. It looks ordinary. It feels forgotten. And yet, it could be worth more than $800,000. Not a lottery ticket. Not a risky investment. A single 1982 Lincoln 1-cent coin with no mint mark. And here's the unsettling question: what if you've already touched it and didn't even know? Stay with me, because what you're about to hear could permanently change how you look at every coin you own. Most people believe wealth announces itself loudly. Mansions. Sports cars. Headlines. But real wealth often whispers. It hides in plain sight. In 1982, the United States Mint made a historic transition, changing how pennies were produced. That single year created multiple varieties, compositions, and weights. It was chaos behind the scenes and opportunity for those who know what to look for. Among these coins emerged a no-mint mark Lincoln penny error, a rarity so elusive that collectors now compete fiercely for the privilege of owning one. This isn't hype. This is documented, verified, and valued by the highest levels of the coin collecting world. Now here's where the story becomes personal. In 1982, millions of Americans were using these pennies every single day. Buying coffee, paying tolls, tossing change into jars without a second thought. The coin didn't look special then, and that's exactly why it survived. While people chased stocks and trends, this penny slipped quietly into history. Today, when authenticated and graded at the highest level, its current market value has reached up to $812,000. Let that number settle in. $812,000 for 1 cent. If that doesn't reset your attention, I don't know what will. Here's a quick reality check, and yes, a little humor to keep us grounded. Imagine telling your younger self in 1982, "Don't spend that penny. It's your future beach house." You'd probably laugh. And yet here we are. This is how generational wealth begins, not with loud promises, but with awareness. And awareness is power. What makes this coin so powerful is not luck, it's precision. This specific 1982 no-mint mark penny exists at the crossroads of production errors and historical transition. Collectors don't chase these coins because they're nostalgic. They chase them because demand is relentless and supply is nearly non-existent. High-end collectors, auction houses, and private buyers are actively searching for these exact coins. When one surfaces, it doesn't sit. It moves fast, quietly, and for serious money. Now let me ask you something important. When was the last time you truly examined the coins you own? Not glanced at them, but examined them. Because fear enters the picture here. The fear of realizing too late that you unknowingly spent something life-changing. The fear of learning that someone else found what you overlooked. That fear is justified, but it's also useful. It creates urgency. And urgency creates action. This market is not slowing down. In fact, the opposite is happening. As more collectors enter the space and fewer pristine examples remain undiscovered, values continue to climb. Coins like the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln penny are not just collectibles anymore, they are alternative assets. They represent stability, legacy, and intelligent ownership. And unlike traditional investments, you don't need permission to own one. You just need knowledge. Let's pause for another attention reset. Ask yourself this: if someone offered you $812,000 today for something you already own, would you take 10 minutes to check? Of course you would. And that's exactly why this matters. Because this opportunity favors the prepared, not the rushed. It rewards those willing to look twice while others walk past. Act 3 is where everything comes together. This is no longer just about a coin. This is about mindset. About recognizing that wealth is not always created, it's often discovered. People who live wealthy lives don't stumble into money by accident. They stay alert. They stay curious. They understand value before the crowd does. And right now, knowledge about rare pennies, especially high-value error coins like the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, is separating those who act from those who only watch. If you possess old pennies, you are already holding potential. The next step is verification, authentication, and positioning yourself where serious buyers operate. This is how ordinary individuals step into extraordinary financial moments. Not through speculation, but through certainty. The demand is real. The prices are real. And the time window is very real. So tonight, when you open that drawer, that jar, that forgotten box of coins, don't see loose change. See possibility. See history. See leverage. Because somewhere among those pennies could be the one that transforms your financial story, not gradually, but instantly. Imagine this. A single penny. Sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or a forgotten envelope. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. And yet, right now, in the United States coin market, one specific penny has been whispered about in auction rooms, private collector circles, and closed-door dealer conversations for reaching a jaw-dropping valuation of $777,000. Yes, almost $750,000 for a coin most people would toss aside without a second thought. Before you scroll away or laugh it off, let me ask you something that might make you uncomfortable. What if the most expensive thing you've ever owned was something you never bothered to look at closely? Welcome to the story of the 1985 D Lincoln 1-cent penny, a coin minted in Denver, born in an era of Reaganomics, booming American industry, and quiet minting errors that would later become legends. This is not hype. This is not fantasy. This is a real coin, with real errors, creating real wealth for people who were paying attention while others were distracted. And if you are between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and you've ever held onto old pennies thinking, maybe someday, then stay with me, because someday might already be here. Act 1 begins with ignorance, because that's where most wealth stories truly start. In 1985, over 5.2 billion pennies were struck at the Denver Mint. Billions. Which is exactly why no one bothered to look closely. The public assumed abundance meant worthlessness. But history has a funny sense of humor. Sometimes, when something is produced at massive scale, the rare mistakes hidden inside become exponentially more valuable. And the 1985 D penny is a perfect example of that quiet contradiction. While America was busy chasing dollars, a flawed penny slipped through the system, unnoticed, undervalued, and waiting. Now here's where the story turns and where your pulse should start to rise. Certain 1985 D pennies were struck with dramatic doubling errors, mechanical anomalies, and die-related distortions so pronounced that even novice collectors can spot them once they know what to look for. We're talking about doubling on Liberty, on In God We Trust, and on Lincoln's profile itself. Not subtle. Not debatable. These are bold, unmistakable errors that the market does not forgive or ignore. It rewards them. Aggressively, let me interrupt for just a second, because this is where people usually say, yeah, but that'll never happen to me. Funny thing is, the people who sold these coins for 6 and 7 figures once said the same thing. Denial is cheap. Awareness is profitable. And right now, awareness is what separates those who stay comfortable from those who change their financial story entirely. As Act 2 unfolds, we move from discovery to desire. Over the last few years, elite collectors and private investors have aggressively pursued top-grade, authenticated 1985 D error pennies. Not because they like pennies, but because they understand scarcity psychology. These coins are no longer just collectibles. They are portable wealth, historical assets, and status symbols in the high-end numismatic world. When one surfaced with extreme doubling and pristine preservation, the market reacted instantly. Bidding wars erupted. Dealers called clients who don't even ask for price tags anymore. And suddenly, a penny became a headline. The current market buzz placing a specimen near $777,000 isn't random. It's the result of demand outpacing supply, combined with generational wealth moving into tangible assets. Stocks fluctuate. Real estate requires maintenance. But a rare coin? It fits in the palm of your hand, and yet it can carry the purchasing power of a luxury home. That contrast is intoxicating to serious money. And here's the exciting part: you don't need to be born wealthy to participate. You just need to recognize what others overlooked. And now, let me add a moment of humor, because irony deserves a smile. Imagine telling your younger self, one day, a penny will be worth more than your house. You would have laughed. Yet here we are. History doesn't ask for permission before proving people wrong. This brings us to the emotional core of the story: fear and urgency. Fear of missing out. Fear of unknowingly spending a fortune at a gas station. Fear of discovering too late that what you had was extraordinary. Because right now, millions of Americans still have old jars, rolls, and inherited collections sitting untouched. Every day, coins are spent that should have been studied. Every day, wealth disappears back into circulation. And once it's gone forever. But urgency doesn't mean panic. It means action with confidence. Act 3 is where empowerment replaces doubt. If you possess old pennies, especially mid-1980s Lincoln cents, you are not late. You are early compared to the general public. Demand for rare error coins is accelerating as collectors age out and high net worth buyers move in. These buyers don't negotiate emotionally. They buy decisively. And they pay for quality. The lifestyle this creates is not about flashy promises. It's about options. Freedom. Knowing that something small you preserved with intention could fund travel, security, legacy, or simply peace of mind. Wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer and waits for you to listen. So here's the final question I'll leave you with, and let it linger. If a single penny could change someone's financial future, wouldn't it be reckless not to look at yours? Not tomorrow. Not someday. Now. Because the market doesn't wait. Collectors don't wait. An opportunity, once recognized, rewards those who move with confidence. This is not just a coin story. This is an American story. A reminder that value is not always obvious, and that wealth often hides in places we were taught to ignore. The 1985 D. Lincoln penny is no longer just currency. It's proof that attention creates advantage and that sometimes, the smallest things carry the greatest power. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a single penny, yes, one ordinary looking copper coin, has quietly crossed into the conversation of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Not in a museum. Not locked in a billionaire's vault. But once, in someone's pocket. And here's the unsettling question that should stop you cold: what if you've already owned it and never knew? Stay with me, because today we're uncovering the shocking story of the 1996 D. Lincoln 1-cent coin, a coin so misunderstood, so underestimated, that the rarest examples are commanding extraordinary attention, with top-tier valuations whispered as high as $765,000 in the current elite collector market. And no, this is not hype, this is how hidden wealth actually works. In 1996, the United States Mint struck millions of Lincoln pennies in Denver, marked with a small, unassuming D. These coins flooded circulation, passed from hand to hand, gas station to grocery store, dismissed as spare change. Nothing about them screamed future fortune. And that's exactly why the most valuable stories always begin this way: quiet, overlooked, and underestimated. Because wealth rarely announces itself. It hides. It waits. And it rewards those who know where to look. Here's the twist most people miss: not all 1996 D pennies are created equal. A microscopic minting error, invisible to the untrained eye, transformed a handful of these coins into once-in-a-generation anomalies. The kind serious collectors don't argue over, they compete for. Let me ask you something, and answer honestly. When was the last time you really looked at a penny? Not tossed it into a jar. Not ignored it at the checkout counter. Actually looked at it. If your answer is, I can't remember, you're not alone. And that's exactly what makes this story uncomfortable. Because the people who find life-changing coins are never the ones who assume they're worthless. Now here's where the excitement spikes. Certain 1996 D. Lincoln cents were struck with high-impact mint errors so rare that when authenticated and graded at the highest levels, they enter a completely different financial universe. We're talking about precision mistakes that should never have left the mint. Die anomalies. Striking irregularities. Structural flaws that turn a 1-cent coin into a 6-figure asset. And when one of these coins surfaces in exceptional condition, the market reacts instantly. Quiet phone calls. Private offers. Closed-door negotiations. This is not eBay bargain hunting, this is the upper tier of numismatics, where serious money moves fast and hesitation costs fortunes. Here's a pattern interrupt for you. What if the most powerful investment you'll ever own didn't come from Wall Street, crypto, or real estate, but from a coffee can in your kitchen? Sounds ridiculous, right? Until you realize that documented coin discoveries have rewritten lives before. And they'll do it again. Demand for elite US error coins has exploded, driven by wealthy collectors who want assets that are tangible, historical, and finite. You can print more dollars. You can't recreate a mint mistake from 1996. Once it's found, that's it. The clock stops. And that's why urgency matters. Fear plays a role here too: the fear of missing out, the fear of having already spent something priceless, the fear of being the person who says, I had one of those once. Because every year, more rare coins disappear into permanent collections, tightening supply and driving prices higher. And when a valuation like $765,000 enters the conversation for a single penny, it sends a clear signal: this market is not slowing down. So here we are. This isn't just about a coin. This is about awareness. About reclaiming value where others see none. About stepping into a mindset where wealth isn't always earned, it's sometimes discovered. The people who succeed in this space don't guess. They verify. They authenticate. They act before the crowd catches on. And they understand one crucial truth: the difference between a spender and a seller is knowledge. Picture this. You finally have a rare coin professionally examined. It comes back genuine. The grade is exceptional. Suddenly, conversations change. Options open. A single cent becomes leverage, opportunity, freedom. And while not every 1996 penny holds this power, the ones that do are already in intense demand, with collectors actively searching and willing to pay premiums that can redefine a financial future. So before you dismiss the pennies in your drawer, before you assume it's probably nothing, pause. Because history favors the curious. Wealth rewards the informed. And sometimes, the smallest things carry the greatest value. If a single penny from 1996 can command attention in the realm of hundreds of thousands of dollars, then the real question isn't whether this story matters. The real question is, what's sitting in your hands right now? Imagine holding a single penny in your hand, not a gold bar, not a stock certificate, not a winning lottery ticket, just one ordinary-looking Lincoln cent. Now imagine discovering that this tiny copper coin could be worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, so valuable that collectors fight over it, auction houses whisper about it, and quiet sellers walk away with life-changing money. Sounds unbelievable, right? That disbelief is exactly why fortunes are still hiding in plain sight across America. And today, that fortune has a name: the 2018 D-Mint Mark Lincoln 1-cent error coin. Most people rush past pennies without a second thought. They drop them in jars, glove compartments, or leave them on the ground like they don't matter. But here's the uncomfortable truth: history doesn't reward people who ignore details. History rewards those who recognize rarity before the crowd does. And in 2018, inside the Denver Mint, something extraordinary slipped through the cracks, something that was never supposed to exist. In Act 1, we're introduced to a year that seemed ordinary. 2018 wasn't a recession year, wasn't a crisis year, and certainly wasn't known for producing legendary coins. But while millions of standard Lincoln cents rolled off the presses, a microscopic flaw, an error invisible to the untrained eye, created a coin so rare that it shattered expectations. Certain 2018 D pennies were struck with dramatic minting anomalies that transformed them from pocket change into elite collectibles. We're talking about errors so distinct that professional graders stopped, stared, and re-examined them twice. Coins that weren't just mistakes, they were one-of-a-kind survivors. Now pause for a second. Quick question. How many pennies do you think are sitting in your home right now? 500? 1,000? More? Funny how the thing most people consider worthless might quietly be watching your lifestyle from the sidelines, waiting to change it. Act 2 is where the tension rises, and this is where fear and excitement collide. As news of these error coins spread through private collector circles, demand exploded. Not public demand, elite demand. The kind of demand that doesn't beg, it hunts. Coins with specific 2018 D-Mint errors began surfacing in auctions and private sales, with verified examples commanding jaw-dropping prices. One such coin, authenticated and graded at the highest standards, reached a reported market valuation near $689,000. Let that number sink in. A penny. 1 cent, nearly $750,000. Here's the part most people miss, and it's uncomfortable. The window for discovery doesn't stay open forever. Once collectors lock these coins into vaults, estates, and long-term holdings, supply disappears. Prices don't drift upward, they leap. That's why seasoned sellers move quietly, confidently, and early. They don't wait for headlines. They become the headlines, and yes, this is where urgency matters. Because right now, collectors aren't asking if these coins matter anymore. They're asking who still has them. And when demand chases scarcity, the seller holds the power. This isn't theory. This is how generational wealth shifts hands, one overlooked asset at a time. Let's interrupt the seriousness for a moment. Imagine telling someone, I paid off my house with a penny. They'd laugh, until you showed them the receipt. As we move into Act 3, the story turns personal, because this is no longer about coins. It's about decisions. About awareness. About recognizing that wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer. The 2018 Lincoln penny era represents something bigger than metal, it represents timing. The people who succeed aren't luckier. They're simply more attentive right now. Across the United States, people aged 30, 40, 50, even 65 are rediscovering old collections, inherited jars, forgotten rolls from banks, and family keepsakes. And some of them are stepping into a different lifestyle, not because they worked harder, but because they looked closer. This market is active. It is aggressive. And it rewards confidence. If you own old pennies, especially 2018 Lincoln cents with a Denver Mint mark, the real risk isn't that they're worthless. The real risk is ignoring them while someone else cashes in. Because the market doesn't wait for comfort, it rewards action. So here's the question that matters most. What if the next penny you touch isn't spare change, but a silent invitation to a wealthier chapter of your life? History has already proven one thing. Rare coins don't disappear, they transfer ownership. And the smartest sellers are the ones who realize their value before the world fully catches up.